The following video was taken from a chapter of Jude Dupère-Deville's science fiction novel entitled The Snapdragon Code. Please note, the script is the author's original words and not a product of AI.
He's coming through now!
It was as though the sea of attendees were waiting to yell, "Surprise!" but in a solemnic manner, befitting the reverent mood of those gathering to honor him. All council members from the commission stood at attention, alongside the many thousands of Stan's acquaintances waiting for him to arrive. Others, who had heard of him and what he had done to help teach his people, were also in attendance, to salute him for his courage following the Great Schism. The conclave of this ascended group, contrary to what Stan feared, was not there to rebuke him. Instead, it was to praise him for his part in the play of life. A play that would go on, perhaps forever, to teach the dangers of unrestrained indulgence. It was no effort for Stan to reach the stage. He'd almost forgotten how easy moving across a distance was in the land of his true home. He could see the multitudes in all directions appearing to wait for him. Were they here to witness his punishment? That's what he feared, and in truth, that's what he expected. Being brought in front of his people to be publicly castigated is what he was now preparing himself for. Yet, in spite of that dread, he was overjoyed to be back home. He never thought he would ever see this place again. If I'm lucky, he thought, they will wipe my memory clean and then send me to be reborn in some impoverished place, back on Earth. I will never see my Evey again, Stan tells himself, wondering if anyone there could now read his mind telepathically. While he stood there, humiliated, in front of the world, something unexpected begins to happen. A cheer comes up from the crowd as each member of the council comes forward, salutes him from the heart, and speaks the same phrase over and over. Sultan, you have fulfilled your obligation to yourself and to us all. The role you willingly accepted will ensure a better future for all who come later. Let the apocalypse begin.
Sultan, you have fulfilled your obligation to yourself and to us all. The role you willingly accepted will ensure a better future for all who come later. Let the apocalypse begin.
Stan could see where his guide was taking him. He recognized the place. It was the antechamber to the Hall of Justice and the last place he recalled being at, before making his escape with the help of the techies.
What do you want from me now? Stan asks sternly and without contrition, as he surveys the enormous light-filled room from left to right. Here were some of the people he had governed, the people he had fought with, the people he had disagreed with, and the people he had attempted to sway in order to prevent the war. Many were the people he had given everything up for, believing he would never be able to return. Here he was back home and facing all those he tried so hard to run from. The head of the council speaks first. We want nothing from you that you have not already given us. You have fulfilled your role in teaching others about the dangers of addiction to these violent virtual worlds.
Hearing these words, the crowd begins their unrestrained congratulatory applause as they bow deferentially in Stan's direction. Stan did not expect any of this. In fact, he did not understand any of it. Nothing made sense to him at this point. He was missing something a lot, and it was time for him to get some answers.
I have questions, Stan says as his telepathic voice echoes down the magnificent hall he had been in so many times before as a dignitary. With that remark, the crowd erupts in happy laughter as each attendee passes a knowing glance at the other. Don't you understand? Stan says, waiting for all of them to recognize his guilt. I never had my memory wiped. I remember everything. I ran away from it all. I evaded punishment. I've taken people with me. I created an illegal heaven. I'm not certain what's going on here, but something isn't right. Stan says with complete innocent bewilderment. Look, I am here now to face my penance. I was wrong. I've already admitted it to myself. At the time, I did not understand why all of us, I mean everyone without exception, had to return to the past before moving on to the future. I understand it now. I do. I realize what happens to us when we do not take a step back from a world that wrongfully gives us everything. We become just like the bots. We ourselves become less human and more machine-like. Yes, I do understand. It must be done. We must undergo a trial by fire, with or without our consent, Stan says, as though he's having a private conversation with himself and had just come to a final conclusion. You did nothing wrong, Stan. We are here to thank you. You followed God's plan.
Then a distinct parting of the crowd begins to take place once again. Archangel Michael, dressed in his sublime white robes of honor, emerges with his arms outstretched towards Stan.
As soon as the Archangel reaches his old friend, Sutan, he embraces him and then says, I'm to have the honor of taking you to the Restoration Center, to have your past memories restored completely, and by that I mean restored correctly. It was then that Stan explains once again that he has no memory loss. Sutan, the program you were given was not a trainer. It was SnapDragon, the flower that speaks for you. It was a totally deterministic program giving you no control over your actions. You agreed to this before the program was started. You will soon remember all of this, my friend. Come with me.
Still speechless, Stan follows Michael to the renewal pavilions, where he will have his memory restored. So, Stan realizes, I am like everyone else. I did have my memory wiped and I was born into Earth's HeVEn. As he enters the vast area containing the memory store stations, he can hear the humming sounds coming from the innumerable acoustic lasers positioned around the room. Stan was then ushered into his own station, equipped with a spectral-like force field that held him in a reclining position. Then a whirring sound coming from the photon-phonon laser begins replacing Stan's artificial neuro-ionic data clusters. He could now feel the implanted false memories dissipating like the morning fog in a summer breeze. His amnesia cleared, leaving every facet of every detail polished like a newly faceted diamond. I was blind, but now I can see came to his mind. Flashbacks from his past began to fill his mind so quickly. His head ached. Still, when the procedure was over, all he could think of was the comforting realization that he had been born on Earth like everyone else, and that he was not a traitor. That awareness, along with the fact that he was back home, brought him a sense of total relief. On his way back to the celebrations, he begins to think about all of his pointless attempts to determine which program was in control of his HeVEn. All this time, I was trying to ascertain whether somehow I had been given the wrong code. Now, Stan grasps the irony while chuckling to himself. In the end, though, my suspicions were kind of right. The deterministic SnapDragon had been calling the shots all along. Things make sense now. Everything makes sense, he tells himself as he continues moving towards the assembly of cohorts and wondering if all his old friends would be in attendance. Yes, Stan did believe he was given the trainer code and blasted to a newly created HeVEn to begin his life in a new virtual world. However, his recollection of events proved to be flawed, since it stemmed from a memory implant and not something that really happened. Unbeknownst to Stan, he was actually born here, like all of us were, in order to relearn certain social skills like empathy, kindness, and humility. Stan's character role was the part he agreed to play as atonement for having led the revolt against the council. What he learns, while being Stan Luther Rothman, is exactly what he needed to learn in order to put him on the right empathetic path to full understanding. This fictional story also serves as a metaphor for our own ascending civilization, from the past into our own future. Can it be that we are now being culled to make way for humanoid robots that will be much easier for the ruling elites to control? Perhaps we are being shown how our advancing technologies can destroy our humanity. You see, when a society allows technology to fulfill people's every desire, no matter how perverse psychopaths are born, what if the violent parts of our history that we believe took place right here on this earth never did? What if these periods are merely entertaining productions created for certain virtual reality games? Examples of these exciting virtual environments might have been the Roman Colosseum experience that Stan spent most of his time in, and the medieval Inquisition chapters where torture and killing became an addictive pastime for gamers. Over time, these kinds of virtual worlds isolated people while extinguishing their social skills. Therefore, in order to assimilate humanity back into a civilized world, the people had to relearn compassionate social skills. Just as the Bible tells us, the fallen angels were cast out of heaven and then fell to earth. Perhaps we are the fallen angels in a sense. Although Stan had ultimately agreed to his own rebirth here, he remembered none of it once on Earth. Before he arrived, he knew the important part he would play, and he knew it would not be easy for him. However, he understood it as the only way beings living in a world like Eden can purge themselves of their selfish tendencies. Stan came here, his followers came here, and who knows, perhaps even all of you reading this book have come here for this purpose as well. Perhaps even we may have come here from a world that had given us too much, too quickly. When we return to that fantastical place, the hope is we will have learned our lessons for at least another 1,000 years. It should be noted that Stan's attempts to find out which programming code controlled his world is the same question that some scientists are asking themselves today. In some ways, physics seems to be telling us that the actual path of particles, and therefore everything composed of particles, is set in stone. We are composed of particles following a predetermined path. What does it all really mean if we cannot exercise free will in our actions? The answer to this question is even simpler, yet more profound than you could imagine. As you continue reading, the answer to this enigma will make itself apparent to you. Celebrations for Stan's return continued for some time, although it was hard to judge for how long. In a place without time, while on Earth, Stan had so wished he could return to the land he called home. He had so missed all the wonderful places and beings he had gotten to know over the centuries. Still, he never thought he would see them all, ever again. In absolute truth, this place he had returned to was heaven. Heaven, as one would imagine it, where your mind creates your world and your death is impossible. In this futuristic world, life itself had been codified into its simplest, indestructible form, the qubit. Fail-safe, redundant immortality looks down upon us from the boundaries of our universes. There, the magic of entanglement and the miracle of quantum circuit complexity watches over our souls. In Stan's perfect world, the governing order of dominion had taken care of everything, leaving them with truly unimaginable adventures. Their thoughts became their reality. HeVEn libraries were everywhere to provide them with hiking trips to the white and lavender mountains of Modrenis, the planet with 4 moons and a great castle perched on one of its peaks. That was one of Stan's favorite places. Stan had also loved the purple oceans of Kalenas, where he rode on the backs of teal-green porpoises more times than he could remember. Now, so many exciting experiences awaited him once again. There was only one problem. He was already missing the lake house in New Hampshire with its pine-scented woods, the cold winter air, and the big lake they called Winnipesaukee. I'm in paradise, Stan kept telling himself, and yet I miss New Hampshire. This is crazy. Well, I'm not going to deny myself the one place I really want to be right now. I'll recreate the place. With that being said, his thoughts were enough to activate the archival code and load the qubit information, generating that virtual environment. In a matter of Earth seconds, Stan finds himself walking a familiar path deep in the woods, with the tall pines and sunlight rays filtering down to the ferns carpeting the ground. An old tune begins to play in his mind, and soon it becomes the actual music playing around him. Yes, he says, the Codemaster gets it right, every time. I don't remember where this path leads to, Stan thinks, but I feel that I should follow it. As the wonderfully familiar scent of the sun-warmed pine needles drifts upwards to his senses, comforting memories of his time near the lake flood in, he walks alone for some time, allowing himself to feel the exertion on his leg muscles, as though he were back on Earth's gravity. Gravity is not so bad, he thinks. I do enjoy the effort. As he enters a small clearing ahead, he now recognizes the area. Just like being home in New Hampshire, he says out loud. Then, as he continues walking, he sees the open field ahead, a stretch of corral fencing and the beautiful blue sky against the green trees. There it is, in the distance, a virtual replica of his barn and clubhouse and of his compound in Wolfboro. Well, I guess I've forgotten how easily thoughts can create your desired reality, Stan tells himself, as he reaches the stables and touches the rough red barn siding. Virtually identical, he says to himself. It's just like being home, except without Evey. I don't know when I'll get to see her again. I don't even know whether she'll want to see me again. Maybe not, Stan says out loud, while at the same time trying in vain to send her his thoughts of love and yearning, with no reply. As soon as he passes by one of the side windows of the barn, he hears a horse whinny. Even the horses are in there, all taken from my mind's memory. This is such an amazing feat of technology that I had forgotten all about. I might as well go inside and see how everything looks, Stan decides. It won't be the same, though, without the family or Evey there, Stan hears himself say somewhat glumly. When Stan enters the clubhouse, the smell of the old barnwood walls and the Spanish leather saddles welcomes him. Even a glass of bourbon whiskey sits on the counter from how long ago he didn't know. This is how the place had been left before the accident, he thought. Seeing the bottles of alcohol lined up on the glass shelves in front of him, he decides to pour himself a fresh glass of Jim Beam. However, before he even finishes his thought, there it was on the counter, and with 2 cubes of ice, only just beginning to melt. The HeVEn's virtual bartender had taken care of it for him, and taken half the satisfaction away from the bartender ritual itself, he realized. Next time, I'll do it myself. Next, he takes a seat on one of the swivel cowhide bar stools and turns to face the door to the indoor pool area, Evey's favorite place. I don't know if I can even go through that door, Stan wonders. How can I do it? She won't be there, he tells himself as he gulps down 3/4 of his drink. I can have anything I want right now. I can be anywhere I want to be. I can even have Patra back with me, but she wouldn't be Evey. Stan then begins to wonder whether he should try and open that door to look inside. After pacing about the room several times, he goes back to the bar, finishes his drink, and this time manually pours himself another, sans virtual bartender. After a while, with a little courage from Mr. Beam, Stan slowly approaches the door, going into the pool house. I'm not going inside right away, he tells himself, while running his hands through his newly rejuvenated locks. All I'll do right now is peek. So he grabs onto the cold brass handle and pushes it outwards. It was just enough to see Evey's periwinkle curtains flutter from the breeze of the open door. He then quickly lets it close and takes a deep breath as he stands there, with his back up against the wall. These virtual productions are so real, he reflects. I think I can even smell roses in there, and I'll guess that they're probably white. That's what Evey loved the most and often put out there on the table. Now, Stan starts wondering what else the virtual genie had taken care of to make him feel at home. He had to at least check that out as he opens the pool room's door once again and slowly walks in. There they were, all white roses in a blue vase, sitting in the middle of the wrought iron table Evey had recently covered with a small blue check cloth. Of course, they looked as though they had just been freshly picked by her. It was at that moment that he notices the purplish satin bow tied around the crystal vase. It was exactly like the arrangement he had given Evey on her last birthday, exactly the same. 2 paired champagne flutes filled with live bubbly sat on the same table, waiting for someone to enjoy them. Then he remembers. Of course, I've totally forgotten that in this kind of HeVEn, even subconscious thoughts can make things materialize. That's what's been happening. Because I would like this to be real, it becomes real. That's how virtual worlds can sometimes be a letdown, he reminds himself. On Earth, things are real. Here they might not be. So I guess I will not be enjoying the champagne with Evey, he admits. Once again, that realization brings him sadness in a reality that should only be making him happy. I'll keep looking for her no matter what, Stan says as he begins walking slowly towards the door to the main house. There was a time when I would have been satisfied with just a virtual woman, but not anymore. It just wouldn't be the same, and I'm so damned over that now," he says out loud as he continues towards the door.
As soon as he says those words, he hears water splashing in the direction of the hot tub, and then a familiar, heart-stopping voice speaks up. "Where are you going?" the woman asks as she begins to laugh. It's Evey's voice. It's Evey's voice, Stan realizes. But it can't really be her, he thinks. It's probably just a virtual copy. "Don't let your eyes fool you," he quickly tells himself. "Don't even look over there." Still, it was hard for him not to run over to her. Was it Evey or not? How could he tell? Very simply, if she was virtual and he wanted her gone, all he had to do was wish her away. That's how this reality works, and so he did. He wished her away. "Leave me. I will not deal with avatars." "Stan, are you afraid of me or something? Come over here," Evey says, attempting to convince him that it really was her and not some virtual imposter instead. "Stan, if I was an avatar, I would have disappeared by now, since you said you wanted me gone. That's how it works here, am I right?" Hearing those words, Stan could not dispute what Evey had just said. This must truly be her, he thinks, as he turns around and sees her coming towards him. "I remember everything now," Evey says with a rapturous smile. "So just don't call me Patra," Evey says as she hugs and kisses him and says, "Where are we going tonight?" "Nowhere," Stan answers, still holding on to Evey. "I'm so happy to be home, you have no idea," Stan says as he lets out a long sigh of relief. "Where are we going tomorrow?" "To the moons and back." "To the moons and back, my love,"